14 years old if he is there. So similar to that 14 years old boy, another person, so it would be a mismatch. So this is what the third model is called, functional model. The fourth model is the most recent one, it is human rights model. So the earlier two is with respect to individual oriented, with respect to individual's disability or his impairment. Restricted to his impairment, that is physical as well as functional. The last two is with respect to the societal's approach, how the society approaches the problem. So they have to accept, the society has to accept that they are also part of the society and they are also human beings. That is why we have now, this topic assumes greater significance. The rights, human rights vis-a-vis the disabled. So human rights. So as I told you earlier, somehow Ravindra failed to give me the topic of the seminar. Globalization, human rights in the era of globalization. So I am not going to talk these things only with the singling out globalization. In terms of three terms, liberalization, globalization and privatization. The cumulative effect, because all of you have listened a lot of things from the morning, the cumulative effect of these three things, liberalization, globalization and privatization of society is fivefold. Number one, there will be superimposition of cultural, otherwise it is cultural invasion. So even when I was a student, I also had this infatuation. I also wanted to have a girlfriend. I wanted to love. I wanted to give roses. I was standing in the bus stand, everything. But now, what is the purpose of having this Valentine Day? This is what I call it as a superimposition or cultural invasion. I loved my mother because my father died when I was 8 years old, which is all my mother only brought. Now we are celebrating Mother's Day. We are celebrating Father's Day. We are going to give a card, 20 rupees card, talking card, singing card, whatever it is, pizza culture, coke culture, etc., etc. So this is what I call cultural invasion. The second important point is with respect to materialistic. World will become, the society will become more materialistic and also more commercialized. I suffered, so let him also suffer. In Madras University there is one thing. Many students from international law will pass because we are there, because I passed international law in first attempt, university first. When it comes to other branches for labor and administrative law, definitely the students will be failed. Because the professors, I failed 6 times, at least 2 times let the student fail. That is what I call materialistic. I suffered. I used my corruption. I used my pressure. Let him also do it. Why should I help him? So charity goes in. So world will become materialistic. And we lawyers are known for our materialism. We are not bothered about anything but filling our pockets. And the third one is erosion of cultural values and human values. Cultural ethos and human values. When I was a young boy, small boy, 10 years old, my mother used to encourage me to give seats whenever I am traveling in a bus. If there is a pregnant woman or aged person is there or a disabled is there, my mother used to encourage me. Son, get up. You can sit on my lap. Give the praise to that. So readily I did. But now what I am doing is, for my 8-year-old daughter, I get a seat, reserve a seat. And when somebody comes, I am asking her to pretend to be asleep, fast asleep. She's sleeping, so don't disturb. And moreover, I assert, I have bought a ticket for her. So I am asserting my right. I have bought a half ticket for her, so I am eligible to get a seat. Don't disturb her. I am calling the conductor to enforce the law. So this is what I call erosion of cultural ethos and values. Then the next one is, we all thought that earlier, as per the part 3 of our constitution, most of the fundamental rights can be enforced only against state actions. That is why Article 12 has been incorporated in our constitution. So we were under the belief that the major violator of human rights are the government agencies. So that is why custodial rape, police, public servant, everywhere. But because of this globalization, more violations will be taking place because of the private individuals, not by the governmental agencies. That is why Domestic Violence Act is there. Madam will agree with me. Domestic violence, because only the husband is beating the wife, not the state is beating the wife. Isn't it? Domestic violence. Husband and his relatives, male or female, that is what Domestic Violence Act. So who is engaged in child labor? Everybody was talking about child labor, prostitution. Whether the state is engaged in drug trafficking? No. Whether the state is engaged in child labor? Whether the state is engaged in this Devadasiya prostitution system? No. Only the private individual. That point we should understand. Because of the globalization and the LPG, more human rights violations will take place by the private individual. This point should not go unnoticed. You should understand this. That is why many of the MNCs are violating. That is why social responsibility is being prescribed for the corporate giants. Corporate social responsibility. So this is one point with respect to somebody wanted the answer for globalization. This is one thing we are working on it, and also with respect to how to bring the private individuals within the purview of whether the state should turn a blind eye. No, it is private affair. No, we are making laws. So Domestic Violence Act is one of the classical example for include this particular thing. Morning itself I had a long innings. So how much time I have? Because I opened the innings today morning, and when Ravindra said I should close the innings also. That is why I have been made as a last speaker. I can? 5 minutes, all right, I'll finish it. First chairman of first session and last speaker of the last session, all right. So I had a long innings, that is why I'm given a reply. So that is why catch has been missed, it's all right. So the last one is the over-exploitation of natural resources. This is with respect to environmental law. But anyway, you should understand, over-exploitation, not optimum use of natural resources, over-exploitation of natural resources because of what has become commercialized, materialistic, you want to market, you want to make quick money, etc. So now, when this is the approach of the globalization, how we are going to approach the problem of disabled? Because the disabled person faces two problems already, I told you. So here only we should understand the role of human rights. Earlier also, the rights of the disabled have been recognized by various things. In India itself, there are two pre-independence acts. I have discussed in my paper. I'm not going to waste my time on that. Lepers Act, a pre-independence act. And also post-independence act, we have the Mental Retarded Act 1976 and 1995 PWD Act, Peoples with Disability Act. And also many international conventions are there with respect to all these things. I have discussed in my paper. International principle as well as international position as well as Indian position vis-a-vis. Now, already these rights have been recognized. But when you superimpose this human rights aspect on these rights are strengthened. That's the point we should understand. So when you talk about human rights, there are two kinds of growth with respect to human rights. One is vertical growth. New rights are recognized in the within the gambit of human rights. New human rights are recognized. Another one is horizontal development. Already recognized rights get the status of human rights. So when human rights approach is thrust upon such rights, so either the rights get superimposed or reinforced or strengthened. So this is the point I brought out in my paper. And with respect to this globalization and thing, pertinent questions were asked. Localization angle, when you are going to interpret, when you are going to approach human rights vis-a-vis a disabled, vis-a-vis any other person, then these ethics, the desire, the conscience of the society must reflect in the interpretation of human rights. This is what they said in Nilabadi Begara's case. This is what they said in Bodhisattva's case. This is what they said in Bhim Singh versus Jammu and Kashmir case. This is what they said in several cases. Chandrima Das versus Railways authorities. What they said? When they wanted to award compensation for the violation of human rights, for which there is an executive reservation with respect to this treaty application. They said, human rights jurisprudence as outdated, as how shown this executive, that is, when you are, what is a reservation for treaty, international students and teachers will appreciate. When you are signing a treaty, the executive signs a treaty in the name of the president. Then what happens at the time of signature? Certain provisions are reserved so that those provisions will not be applicable to the signing country, the party. So we have made, when we signed these treaties, we have made a special executive reservation to the extent that awarding compensation for violation of human rights will not be applicable, which is which is alien to Indian jurisprudence, human rights jurisprudence. But court said nothing doing. Our human rights jurisprudence, our conscience, our dignity, our equality, our development project has overgrown these particular things. So this is what I want to give the message. If you want to interpret, so when you approach the disabled right, already disabled rights are there. So first thing is, what is the disabled right? They should be treated at par. It is not treated as equals. It is equal treatment. Please refer to this from the American Constitution. Board of Topeka versus other things. Equal treatment, treated as equals. So this is where you should understand the difference. Second thing is, opportunities must be given. Employment opportunities in the education as well as in the employment. That is why the central government has made 3% reservation. So the 1995 Act, PWD Act speaks about it. But the novel thing is, 2006, there is an international convention called PWD Convention, Convention with respect to peoples with disability. I have elaborately discussed that in my paper. Please go through it. So, there are some rights already recognized as disabled rights. When you approach them as, when you give a Midas touch, that is human rights touch, so it turns out to be a magic touch. So, it gets elevated into, those rights are getting superimposed, nobody can violate. In Tamil Nadu, 2 instances I'll give you. One is with respect to every public place should have a ramp for the wheelchair persons. And recently, the High Court has heavily come down on the public transport system that they should have a low footboard so that physically challenged persons can board. And there is a separate seats reserved in the public transport systems. These are some of the things. So when you approach it through human rights prison, when you see these things, so it is not charity, it is the right, positive right. It is a positive right, and there is a duty cast upon the state to fulfill their desires and everything. Thank you for the patient hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ambrose. His subject on human right and physically challenged or disabled, that physical imbalance are the disabled, and societal approach towards the disabled persons. And he has quoted the famous biblical parable of the prostitute brought before the Christ, and the last Christ permitting all those people to throw the stone and kill her with one word: those who have not sinned can throw the first stone. And starting from this biblical parable, and this story starts with that everybody is having some sort of disability, and the character models and various models he has discussed. Now, one small human right issue I got it. He has taken half ticket for his daughter and he has taken full seat. So, whether half ticket eligible for half seat or full seat is a question. So, the globalization is leading to violation of human right. Then the role of ethics in interpreting the human right. So, thank you very much, sir. Now it is open for discussion. Those want more information, discussions, please be very, very precise, and 15 minutes is allotted for the whole discussion. Please see that if there is any clarification, it should be like a question put under the Right to Information Act. Need not give details. What is exactly you want?
We'll get 10 rupees.
And you must give the answer also in the exact way. No explanation. Answer to the question, and the question is to be very precise. Thank you very much. Now it is open to you all for discussion, and 15 minutes time is allotted for this discussion session, and I welcome the audience to raise if there is any clarifications or any information or any explanation
with regard to these three papers presented, one by Dr. Ratna Gowda on violence against women, and the C.S. Patil on the human right enforcement mechanism, and the Ambrose on human right physically disabled or challenged. So it's open for discussion.
Dr. Ratna Gowda. So she was quoting in one case, I think, Bodhisattva, for offense of rape, court order for providing maintenance. If the court passes such orders, what are its implications?
Now the facts of this case are the victim who had filed for the case had been filed. The accused, actually he is a lecturer, and the person who has filed the case is a student, and her case is that under the pretext that he is going to marry her, he had sexual relationship, and later on he did not marry. Now this, when it came before the Supreme Court, now the court thought that it is going to be considered as a rape, and in this case where the woman has been cheated, so now the court said that as a compensation this person has to pay her maintenance every month until the case is going to be finally decided. So this, I say that the court is taking a creative role.
We can go on widening the sphere of privacy, or else maybe this domestic violence is not an offense against the state, or else like maybe disability is also a matter of what within the private sphere like that. If you go on stretching that it is a matter of public concern like that, if you go on adding to this public sphere, in fact under the Domestic Violence Act itself, not being defined it as a crime, it is not a crime like that, but often we are quoting the cases with reference to Vishaka or else the other type of offenses against the state. Say, when we quote it that rape is an offense against the state, we consider like that. But domestic violence is not an offense against the state. So it is not been defined as an offense. But still, when you are telling that this is a matter of private affairs like that, say in fact in England it happened, one wife petition before the court of law, claiming that she wanted a divorce from her husband, and asking the reason she stated, her husband stopped beating her. Her husband stopped beating her shows that he has some love or inclination towards another woman, that's why she stopped. This happened long back, but now not. I am not advocating for the domestic violence. But the situation is that whether the matters of the private arena can be brought to the public arena like that, even it may be with respect to disability, and can the law be made as a pragmatic instrument to overcome these things?
To the definition given by Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, 1993, very specifically, it says that violence against women includes violence within the private life or in the public life. As such, these international declarations, what they say is, state has to take up the responsibility for the acts of individuals. You cannot say that husband is beating the wife, it's a private matter between themselves. So state has to provide protection. That is why state is passing acts and also providing protection for the family matters.
I'll come to that later. Yes, yes. Come.
Has spoiled culture, it has spoiled materialistic source, view, this, that, and blah, 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 blah. So it has come down heavily. So I would suggest one more good thing. Why don't people think about which really happened good for us just because of the globalization and liberalization and so-called LPG privatization? Because before 1991, we had very few hundred dollars of foreign exchange. And just because of the 1991 foreign policy by then Finance Minister Manmohan Singh, hog everything. So, and we have so many aggressive nations like China and Pakistan. If we had not done the globalization then what would have been the situation by then now? Because in 1999, Pak gave heavily upon in Kargil. So if we didn't have enough currency or enough foreign exchange, we would have been somewhere else so far now. So I would like to tell globalization is not at all wrong for us overall. Every system has its merits and demerits. So we cannot come down heavily only upon the globalization. Thank you, sir.
Always I respect the chairman, so my first answer is with respect to Chairman's query. I bought a half ticket and I am traveling in full seat. This half ticket is as a result of Child Rights Convention, sir. It is again a human rights. With respect to my friend, see, when I say impact, that impact could be beneficial impact and adversarial impact. I omitted the adjective. You misread me. So always you are biased. It is not, I am not to be blamed. You are biased. You always think globalization is good or bad. No, I am balanced as a teacher. So I teach my students what is it. I will give you an example. See, I have a house. At the same time, I have a teenage daughter. But suddenly my wife and both of us are working. Suddenly due to something, I lost my job. I have to educate my daughter. So now I have a big house. I would like to rent it out to somebody else. At the same time, I am very cautious about my daughter's privacy. So I have to balance my interest. So this is what I said. So if you want me to talk about the goods of globalization, I am ready to talk because I'm a student of international trade law, trade liberalization. What is the benefits India is achieving with respect vis-a-vis these things, and also IPR, etc., with statistics. But since my father is a drunkard, I cannot say you are a drunkard. I have to try to live with him. That is where I gave you suggestions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Sir, one more. Sir, what is that? Yes. One more. Sorry. Jagdish will punch me if I don't answer him. I am for not giving him due respect. Sir, with your permission. So I'll give you one thing. So, who is the guardian of human rights? I'm going to ask you this question. Because who is the guardian of human rights? Jagdish? Who is the guardian of human rights? No. No, don't say that is. Because it is we the people, so political sovereignty is thus and legal sovereignty is the parliament. No, I don't want this. The society. Guardian of the human rights is none other than the state. You should agree with me. The guardian of the human rights are states. So that is why in Tamil we used to say, Veliye Paire Maindal, the fence which is meant to protect the agricultural, plants. If it is going to destroy, then what is the answer? That is what earlier we understood. Now, when human rights are violated by the individuals, two questions arise. Whether the state should turn a blind eye. No, this is not my job. No. It is the job of it is the function, one of the essential functions as cited by Solomon, function of the state, welfare state especially, war and justice and later on welfare state, to protect, to guarantee of fundamental rights, freedoms. Article 1 of UN Charter says, promote human rights and respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. So it is a nation state's duty, sovereign duty to protect human rights of the masses when it is affected by private individuals. He cited the Domestic Violence Act. He is little bit confused between offense and human rights violation. Am I right, Mr. Jagdish? Not all human rights violations are called offenses. Madam, do you agree with me, madam? Not all human rights violations are offenses. Some human rights violations are offenses. In Constitution itself, 90% of the constitutional fundamental rights are guaranteed against state action except 4 instances. One is untouchability. Article 51, when you are prevented from entering into public places, then a writ will lie against private person. And Article 23, with respect to exploitation of child and women, etc. in these things. So in these cases, when you are violating then a writ petition, a public law remedy will lie for private actions. This is you should understand. The second thing is, that is what we have extended this point to Article 21 also. That is a famous case, you will be agreeing with me. That is what in the Bangalore case. When there was a motorbike accident victim, so he was rushed to a nearby 24 hours clinic. He was refused the first aid. So then the court said, right to life can also be enforced against